Thank you so much for doing this. I'm excited to talk to you about your new book, and I'm a writer, and I write all the time, so I'm always anxious. I love to talk to writers, and I'm so curious about the book and everything. But can you kind of tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from?
You bet, you bet. I am a regular old girl here, but I'm in the latter stages of my life now, which is awesome. I mean, it just mean like I'm not a youngin' anymore, but I have spent all my decades in ministry. I came to know Jesus when I was about 16 formally, although I'd left God all my life. And then ended up going to Denver Seminary, ended up serving as the CEO of MOPS International for 20 years. And today I co-host Discover the Word, which is available both online and on your local radio station at discovertheword.org. Anyway, I do that, and I write, and I speak, and I am a wife, and a mom, and a yaya to two grand boys. So that's me.
Oh, well, I'm a Gigi, but I don't have great. I'm not a grandma yet. I just have great nieces and nephews. So
I love that. Oh, I
yeah,
love that,
they.
Gigi.
Well, my name is Ginger, and my oldest great niece, which I say her oldest, she just turned 6. I have 5 of them, and like that, she's the oldest, and we kept saying, Aunt Ginger, and then we said, and she could get the aunt part, so we kept saying Ginger, like Ginger, and then so she said Gigi, and we're like, no, and she was like, yes.
It stuck.
And I was like, and
I
then,
love it when they name us.
well,
Yeah.
what's funny is later on I realized there's a lot of grandmas named Gigi, so I was like, hey, you know what? I'm not only Gigi on the aunt end, I'm gonna be a grandma Gigi because I don't want to be grandma. I'd like, call me Fruit Loop, whatever, call me anything, but I really don't really care for the grandma name. I mean, it's all right, but I'd rather have one of those cool nicknames anyway. So that's gonna be that's gonna be my grandma name.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm like you. See, you're one of the few people I talk to that are like, oh yeah, my babies have left. I'm like, yes, my babies have left. I mean, it's a great time. Every season is something to celebrate, and this is another time to celebrate. Now I can throw myself back into ministry with a lot less limitations, and
Right. Yeah.
I
Distractions and
think it's great.
etc.
It's another season. I'm a single mom. I've been one for quite some time, so I don't even have to keep up a husband. As long as I wash my clothes and clean my house, I'm pretty good.
For you. For you, Ginger.
Well, so I'm very curious. As soon as I saw the prayer coin, I thought, okay, so maybe, it was like a thing, like a prayer coin of, like an actual product. And then I didn't realize it was a book. And as I got to read the press release, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. But tell us the name of the book is called The Prayer Coin, Daring to Pray with Honest Abandon. But tell us, what does that mean? What is the prayer coin?
You bet. Yeah, I can understand you might have thought it was kind of a gimmick or, a geek on that you buy. And the prayer coin, I coined the phrase, if you will. It came to me as I was reading Jesus' garden prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he prays, take this cup, yet not my will, but yours be done. He prays these two seemingly opposite pleas in one sentence.
Right.
Take this cup, God, this is what I want, but not my will, what do you want, God? And as I began to study this prayer during a really tough time in my life, I realized that this prayer, Jesus prays 3 times in the garden, Matthew and Mark tell us, and that it's in all of the Gospels mention this prayer. And I started realizing, oh my gosh, Jesus prayed it over and over. I wonder if we could. And I realized he invited his first followers to pray it with him. And that's, therefore, he's really inviting his 21st century followers to learn to pray as well. Take this cup. This is what I want, God. Yet, not my will. What do you want, God, in a given situation?
As if God doesn't know our hearts. It's kind of like
Right.
most of the time as a mom, we know exactly what our kids want. Even now I can predict when I'm about to be asked if I can do something.
Uh-huh.
I can hear the request already in my head, but it doesn't mean we don't want to still hear it. And it's
Yeah.
like it's like
That's a good point. Yeah.
your husband loves you, but it doesn't mean he just said it at the altar, and unless his mind changes, like, you should just know it. No, you want to hear it. You want to hear the actual words coming from them, even if you know what they are. And I think God's the same
Yeah.
way. He wants to hear from his children. He wants us to ask for it. And I think it's a sign of respect, it's like you don't want to, like, just do something for your kids, especially when they become adults. You don't want to just do it. You want them to grow, and the only way they can grow is to learn to ask for it themselves, and to figure out for themselves that they need to ask.
That's so good, Ginger. And so we're calling it the prayer coin because there's two sides of prayer. There's the take this cup, the honest side, and there's the not my will, the abandon side, where we really lean into God's will. And, like you're saying, I think most of us pray one side or the other. We either pray, oh God, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want, or we pray kind of lobotomized, just what you want, God, and
Yeah,
we don't get
exactly.
honest. And I think God really desires both sides of expression, both the God, this is what I want, and the abandon of, but what do you want, God? I think that's what Jesus modeled for us, is this two sides of prayer, this prayer coin.
And it is, I think, I don't know how you feel, but I felt like at times, like, I'm supposed to pray a certain way. And even though in my heart, I know God knows that there's this other part of what, like, I've got my own opinion or my own wish as to what I would like happen. But, like, I'm afraid, like, I know I need to just pray, his will, whatever it is. And, but there's this piece missing. You're right. When it's like, I'm not being completely upfront with him and honest about what, I really want. It almost like I'm embarrassed or ashamed, or like I think I'm being less spiritual if I actually tell him what I
Yes.
want. But it,
And as you pointed out, it's really respectful to tell God what we want. The writer of Hebrews in chapter 5, I think it's verse 7, says that Jesus was heard in his honest pleas because of his reverent submission. And he cried out with all of the pain in the world. And we're not respecting God by hiding our feelings from him. Like you're saying, we can't fool him. It's so
right.
silly. So why not be absolutely honest and at the same time pivot or turn the coin into being absolutely abandoned? When we're just kind of abandoned without being honest, there is an artificiality. It's not authentic. When we are honest before God, it helps us understand what it is we're really feeling. And what I love about this is that in the garden, Jesus prayed this repeatedly. Repeatedly, he prayed it. And I think each time he prayed it, something else came out, as it does with us. God, I really want my children to follow you. Okay, that's honest. But not my will, but yours be done. If they make mistakes, God, let me relinquish that. And then I flip back into the honest. God, please help them not make mistakes that are going to have life altering consequences, please. And then I put back into abandon, and I'm like, oh my goodness, but you've used my mistakes, my crazy mistakes, to help me see my need for you. Can I trust you that you're going to do the same for them? When we pray, flipping back and forth between the two sides of the prayer coin, the end result is that we develop a closer relationship with God, more intimacy.
Well, it's like with any relationship, whether it's you're a child, a friend, or your spouse, or whoever it is. If you're only saying, like, if you were married, if you were to only walk around saying whatever you want, whatever you want, whatever you want, I mean, uh, for one,
Yeah.
women don't do that. No, just kidding. Um, you know, but I think women, as we're more people pleasers, so we're probably more likely to say, okay, well, whatever you want. I mean, where do you want to go out to eat? Well, whatever you think. I mean, but we can say we can say how, but the intimacy of your relationship gets deeper when you say, you know what, I really hate Mexican food. Why do we keep going out for it? But I mean, that's not true. I absolutely love it. But you know, it's,
But the point you're making is that we can just try and hide our real feelings from God. And in Psalms, the writer of Psalms says that before a word is on our tongue, He knows it, and before thought is in our head, and we know from Matthew that He knows the number of hairs on our head. I mean, it's just silly to try and hide it from God, and when we do so, we really miss out on His great love for us, just as we are. We get so messed up because we think that in the original fall, when Adam and Eve stepped away from God, we think, well, God just stopped loving us then. No, He didn't stop loving us ever. What changed is our understanding of how He sees us. Our fear came into the world, and we began to hide from God. And in the prayer coin, here's Jesus bringing Himself completely to the Father to have a wonderful relationship with Him, that He might create that kind of intimacy for us again, the intimacy that we lost, that He might return it to us.
Yeah, because when they say, when He says David was a man after His own heart, David was like that. David was, at times, would just say, when he had everybody trying to kill him, he was like, you know, but if it's just you and me, then
Mm-hmm.
it's sufficient. I mean, it's like, and like Job, like, I really don't want to be sick, lose all my wealth and my family and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, though He slay me, I mean,
Right.
you see several examples of that. And the more I thought about your concept, I thought, it's really throughout several examples in the Bible of people that we love as examples in the Bible, even the
Mm-hmm.
people, not just God, but the people that served Him diligently. They they were the more intimate the relationship, the more you could see this kind of the crying out. The Psalms is all about crying out,
That's
so
right.
and
That's right.
so
That's right.
they're
And yet an intimacy of relationship. And, Jesus didn't want to go to the cross, which we forget. We think, well, He was just all God all the time. And so, of course, He was just all up for that. Well, no. In His humanity, He resisted that, praying, take this cup. I'm not excited about going through torture and hanging on a cross and being ridiculed and being wrongfully accused and then ultimately being separated from my Father, with whom I've never been separated, even though He had come to earth as in the form of a human. He'd never been away from God, and He was going to be away from God as He went into death. He just God honestly said, I don't want to do this. In fact, Eugene Peterson in the Message translates that verse of take this cup, yet not my will, as God, if there's any way, get me out of here. That's
right.
how honest Jesus was. And yet, He pivoted into agreement with the Father. In John, we're actually told, He says, when they come to arrest Him, and everybody starts fighting, He goes, wait, shall I not drink the cup that the Father has designed me to drink? So He did yield. But I just think what's so just hugely important for us, for you and me, Ginger, as we follow after Jesus today, is to realize that our Savior prayed both sides of this prayer coin of honest and abandoned. This is what I want, God, but what do you want? And we can pray that way too.
And the Psalms is almost a perfect example of the prayer coin because it's both crying out and praising. It's both
Yeah.
submitting to the will, but then it's also a crying out of these things. It would sometimes even within one sentence. It's
Uh-huh.
it's but if we do this, but then again, this also needs to happen. And
Uh-huh.
I feel like, I don't know, you've been in ministry, sounds like, as at least as long as I have, or probably longer, but at least as long. And I have found out, I've been a Christian most of my life because I was raised by a single mom that was fervently following Him. So I kind of loved Jesus all my life, and
Uh-huh.
definitely, had kind of a similar story. But, I think one of the things at some point I realized is I started to feel like I was less of a Christian to pray like that. Like I felt like I was supposed to pray like everybody else
Mhm.
did. And
Mhm.
I feel like there's almost a self-deprecating aspect to some of the praying that is done publicly. And, you know, it makes me feel, it would make me feel in my personal life like, well, but that's not how people pray,
Mhm,
that's,
mhm.
you
Well,
know,
I think we get kind of tongue tied here, and I agree with you because we think everybody else knows how to pray, but I don't. Or there is a right way to pray, and I don't know what it is. We just have a ton of prayer problems, and probably the biggest prayer problem is that because we're so afraid we're doing it wrong, we don't do it
we
at
just
all.
don't do it. Yeah.
That's a big prayer
We're afraid
problem.
we'd rather just not do it than to do it
Right.
wrong.
Right. And the reality is that prayer is really conversation with God. And I think that's what this prayer coin really illustrates. It's a talking with God about this is what I want, but what do you want? And then helping me hear what God wants and then trying to say, and here's my response to what you want. This is that's what it's conversation is the best word for it, I think, because it really illustrates the relationship that we have with God through Jesus.
Because, honestly, if we were supposed to pray with just the side of whatever your will, if we were just supposed to pray that side, then I don't think we would have been created, because God didn't,
That's
why
right.
create robots? Why
Right.
create people who are just going to serve you without question, without, ever saying anything? That's slavery,
Yeah, that's silly. Yep,
and
I
that's
agree.
and that's ridiculous. I mean, to
Mhm.
have, he obviously created us for the intimacy, and to have the intimacy, it has to be an honest conversation back and forth. And with every relationship, I mean, you can be a grandma, you can be a yaya or a Gigi. I mean, let's get real.
Mhm.
No, I mean, you can have that relationship. My grand I mean, my uncle used to pray for our, like, all of our, like, big family meals. And I told my mom later on, I said I felt like I was supposed to pray in King James, because he would take like one deep breath and he would
Mhm.
just go, he just say, "Oh Father, thou art worthy and we aren't," and and bless his food and nourish it into our bodies, and of course the traditional prayers. And my uncle is completely genuine. His heart
Right.
is genuine. But then it was this, like, okay, now I didn't put any these thous,
Mhm.
any of that in my prayer. And then you feel like, so was it heard? Did I do it
Mhm.
right? When really the more we talk respectfully but honestly, and like your book was, even the title itself, to be praying with abandon. I love when people talk about worshiping, with abandon, just completely no holds barred, just, completely transparent in front of him, saying, because let's be honest, we all would like this cup to pass most of the time, or we'd
That's
like
right.
we'd like our kids to skip all these lessons and go straight to the reward aspect. We
Mhm.
don't want to watch
Mhm.
them suffer. But
That's right.
you know what? Honestly, at times I have actually thought, I need to actually let them, as bad as it hurts, I need to let them suffer this small lesson so they'll avoid the bigger, harder
That's right.
lesson, and
Yeah.
the more we prevent ourselves from, praying with just, honesty like that, the more we're hurting ourselves, and the more we are kind of keeping this constant, there's this constant aspect that's always missing. And I think you're right. We do either or. We're either going, it
Mhm.
depends on
Mhm.
how if we're praying in our quiet time and how we've been taught to, and in some kind of church setting, then, we get our prayer closet, or we get our prayer journal out, then we talk like very religious. But then, a lot of times, when the situation happens, then we're like, "Oh God, please, I really don't want this. I don't want this cup at all." Like,
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
so we eventually do it. We just should be doing it together. We should be, you know, our whole heart. We really do want His will to be done, but there really is an honest, self person that's involved that would like to have something different happening. God was actually persuaded by people continually praying their honest feelings, even though he was, I forget the example in the Bible where he says, but basically your persistence, you
Oh,
know,
right. Mm-hmm.
finally convinced me, or not convinced me, but because of your,
Persistence. Mm-hmm.
persistence and honest persistence,
Right,
then
that's the woman who kept knocking at the
yeah,
door. For listeners who are processing this, I want to direct them to a website called theprayercoin.org. And just there's more there about this whole conversation, but there's also a link there called Take the Prayer Dare. And that's where you can share your discoveries as you pray this, just like we're talking about, Ginger, because some of us are going to kind of flip over onto the honest side. Some of us are going to flip more easily onto the abandoned side. And I think we help each other, just like you just said, when we share what our learnings are. So there's that for people.
yeah, and I think that I'm curious with with what you're doing in your life. You've done several different things. Um, I know you worked in MOPS, which I was at one point a part of. With most people know what that is. It's a mother's group for Christian women, and but you went through that, but then you're co-hosting radio, but you're writing, and you write regularly for Our Daily Bread. I did not,
Right.
and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I've read that all my life. But
That's
like,
great.
so how did the prayer coin, did that develop? Because for me, I'm constantly going, I really want to continue working with Christian bands, but I still want to co-host, but I still need to write my book. Like, like, did some of that come out of, but tell me your will, because honestly, I want to do it all.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a prayer posture that accompanies us with whatever kinds of challenges we're facing. Maybe it's with our kids, as we've talked about it. Maybe it's in our marriages. Maybe it's or lack thereof. Maybe it's in our jobs. Maybe it's in our calling. Maybe it's with a health crisis or a health need. Maybe it's simply trying to discern God's will. And, some people have a dream of what they'd like to do for God their whole lives, and they never see it accomplished, and they live in kind of a frustration. That's another place where we can address this, and we can use this as a really valuable tool for praying. So, absolutely. And when I pray, as my husband and I are making decisions about how we invest our time in our latter years, this prayer coin begins to guide us. Take this cup, God, I don't want to be bored. Or take this cup, God, I don't want to be set on a shelf. Or take this cup, God, I need to scale back from so many commitments.
Right.
And then I yield over into, not my will. Maybe you want me to be quieter. Maybe you're trying to teach me more about my need for you in a season of diminishment and aging. Or maybe you're trying to welcome me to step back from certain responsibilities, etc. I do believe that this prayer coin technique, this practice, can help us in any season and with everything we're trying to do.
And the other aspect about prayer is we have to be able to listen. I have recently been kind of talking about on my show, like, we have to turn off our background noise. It's kind of like trying to drive or find a location while your kids are fighting in the back seat of the car. Like, you might still get there eventually, but you're not going to enjoy the ride for one, but you won't truly be able to quite understand. If somebody's trying to talk to you on the phone and say, okay, now you're going to have to make this turn. Hold on. So and so, would you quit fighting? I mean, like, we got to put our phones down. We've got to walk away from the TV set. We've got to have times of, where we can actually hear his response, because it's only a conversation if we hear him, if we're actually listening to his response, which may or may not be, the cup might not pass from us. And we got to be able to be willing to accept either answer, whatever that is. And
that's right.
His answer being the right one. Now, so we can go to prayercoin.org, but also we can go, you have your own website, which is Elisa. I know that people probably say your name wrong all the time. It's Elisa, right?
ElisaMorgan.com,
Yeah.
right? ELISA. You got it right, Ginger. Good.
I have a daughter named Alicia, so she gets even with her name being spelled more traditionally and phonetically, she gets Alicia, Alekia. I mean, she gets all these like weird, and I'm like, even Ginger. People are like, Ginger? How do you spell that? Like, let's pick it. The Spice, Gingerbread, Ginger Snaps, Ginger Gilligan's Island. I mean, like, there's when you just pick your example. Depends on where they're from. I get, the Gilligan's Island, or I get, Ginger Rogers, which I really like that example. But anyways, I'm so excited to read the book. Now, can people go ahead and buy it? Is it available?
It is available, and right now there's a special set that's available: the book, the prayer coin, and then a journal, the prayer coin journal, that actually helps you pray this. You write on the left-hand side, take this cup, and on the right-hand side, not my will. And then it also comes with an actual coin that's exclusively minted. It says honest on one side and abandon on the other side. And anyway, that little kit right now is available at Discovery House, just I think for a limited time for like $20. It's a great deal. But then the regular book is also available as well. So go to theprayercoin.org and you can click through to all of those things we're talking about.
Well, thank you so much. It's definitely an interview that I was, anytime it's a writer, I'm always like, I just want in their head, like what, what were they thinking? Where did they go from there? But this was such an incredible concept because it's so different. And you would think at some point, even though I've read Psalms and seen examples like take this cup and all these other different examples in the Bible, I have never put it together. And
me either. Yeah, it's a really popper. It's very fun. The whole paradigm of prayer shifts.
It does. Your entire perspective and your approach to prayer changes. So I'm excited to read this. I'm a reader for sure, and I think the prayer journal going along with that is a good way to get people in the practice of doing that, of being honest, but then getting used to also saying, but in the end, it's your will,
Yes.
So I love this. I'm so excited to talk to you, and I'm more excited to read the book now.
Thank you, Ginger. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So again, it's prayercoin.org, theprayercoin.org, or it's Elisa, Elisa Morgan.com. But I would go to prayercoin.org. That way you can purchase the book and the journal and all whatever you'd like to purchase. But also you can learn more about it. And it's just an incredible book, just the concept and everything. So I can't wait to actually read it. So thank you again so much for coming on the show. And I'm going to be looking out for your show because you're in Grand Rapids, but you're also online. So I'm going to tune it. Now, your information, is that on your website for where you can listen?
Just go to elisamorgan.com, but it's discovertheword.org. So easy to remember too.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I can't wait to listen to you as well. So thank you again. And have a nice day there out in Colorado. It's really nice here. It's not hot anymore, so I'm enjoying it.
Good. Thanks, Ginger.